In this video, we'll overview drama. We'll talk a little bit about its history, and then talk about some of its important elements. Drama is unique from other forms of literature. It's actually designed specifically to be performed. So plays are designed to be shown, not told. So drama is typically divided into comedy and tragedy, and you'll find that when you read drama, you'll see stage directions, character names, and so on. As you read a play, you want to think about it as if you were the director, the person who is actually directing the play and telling the actors when to say what they need to say. In that way, you'll be able to appreciate the timing and the effect that needs to be made on the stage in order to get the author's point across. Theater is actually ancient. As we know it, it originated with the ancient Greeks in Athens. They were known to perform their plays in open-air theaters known as amphitheaters. And so on this slide we see the remains of a Greek amphitheater, which you can see is open air, and it was at the time as well, so that's not something that has happened. The roof wasn't lost at all. It was designed to be open air, and that the seating is staggered upwards, and that was to enable people in some of the very highest seats to be able to hear the actors down on the stage in the center. All actors wore large masks during the Greek time period, and no matter whether it was a male or female role, all actors during this time period were male, and that actually carried through for quite a long time. So the actors entered a skene. The skene is a fixed stage house, which may have been painted to represent a scene. So you might think about it as if it were the backdrop of what if you've seen a play in person. However, they only had one in Greek times. A scene is a kind of a derivation of the word, and scene means a division of an act presenting continuous action in one place. Greek plays also used a narrator of sorts in the form of a chorus. A chorus is a group of citizens that commented on the action and characters through song, dancing, and speaking. As things evolved, drama did too, and during the Elizabethan time, the stages had been modified quite a bit from the Greek amphitheater. They were still open air, however they were much smaller than the Greek amphitheaters, although still very roomy. You can see from the diagram that the actors were down in the center, and that the audience was in multiple tiers around the stage. Again, this was to help with the acoustics so that the actors could be heard by all people in the theater. Shakespeare is probably the best known playwright, and again during Shakespearean times the dramas were acted out solely by males, but they no longer wore masks, so makeup and dress became much more important during this time period. Shakespeare's plays are usually divided into 5 acts, and each act is divided into multiple scenes. Believe it or not, if you've read a Shakespearean play, they are quite lengthy. They did actually perform them without an intermission. Intermission is a recess or break in between them, so audience members had to be ready for the duration. Eventually, the stage did evolve into a box stage, and basically it is exactly what it sounds like, a box, but with one wall removed, and this gave a lot more flexibility and versatility to set design and to create various scenes within that set. So now it's time to talk about some elements of drama. Just like fiction, there are a lot of crossovers between drama and fiction. Plays consist of narratives with plots, settings, themes, characters, and irony. None of these should be new terms to you. Most plays have no narrator. However, we know that Greek plays used to use the chorus to act as a type of narrator. Shakespearean plays use a specific tool called the soliloquy to allow the audience to hear what the character is thinking and feeling. A soliloquy, although spoken aloud on the stage to the audience, so the audience can hear the character's thoughts. However, the other actors in the play, theoretically, cannot hear it. So that helps set up that dramatic irony that we'll talk about in a little bit. So here's a quick snippet of an example of a soliloquy from Shakespeare's Othello, one of my absolute favorite plays. And this is a soliloquy by Iago, who is plotting and planning against Othello to bring about Othello's downfall, but Othello is blissfully unaware of the evil thoughts that Iago has toward him. Here we hear Iago's character sharing those thoughts through a soliloquy with the audience.
How am I then a villain? When this advice is free, I give, and honest. Probable to thinking, and indeed, the course to win the Moor again. His soul is so enfettered to Desdemona's love that she may make, unmake, do what she list, even as her appetite shall play the god with his weak function. How am I then a villain? To counsel Cassio to this parallel course directed to his good. Divinity of hell. When devils will the blackest sins put on, they do suggest at first with heavenly shows, as I do now, for whilst this honest fool plies Desdemona to repair his fortunes, and she for him pleads strongly to the Moor, I'll pour this pestilence into his ear, that she repeals him for her body's lust, and by how much she strives to do him good, she shall undo her credit with the Moor. So will I turn her virtue into pitch, and out of her own goodness make the net that shall enmesh them all.
Okay, so that gives us a really nice example of a soliloquy performed by Kenneth Branagh, my favorite version of Othello, where he's basically speaking to the audience, explaining his thoughts and feelings, but the other characters are unaware of the motivations. All right, characters are nothing new to us, although they are an important element of drama. So once again, our characters, we generally have a protagonist who's the main character, the main focus of the story, usually a positive figure. In Shakespearean drama, our protagonist usually has some kind of a tragic flaw that does bring them to their downfall. And then we have the antagonist, and the antagonist is of course the character that opposes, or force that opposes our protagonist, or the good guy. Also in plays, we need to think about round characters. So those are the characters that are well developed and undergo those changes throughout the course of the play. They're not usually all good or all bad, so they are usually very human to us, but they do change significantly through the course of the play, and they're the ones that we get to know the most throughout the play. Flat characters are those placeholders, just like they were in short fiction. However, if you think about the practical function of flat characters in a play, they were the stand-ins for, crowd scenes and other characters that didn't have big roles in there, so their characters are not well developed at all. But they're just kind of stand-ins. They don't have that depth that a round character does, but they do fulfill a very important function in drama. Plot and conflict, these concepts come back just like they were in short fiction. Drama follows the same 5 steps in general that our short fiction did. So we need to set the stage with the exposition. So the play begins, it introduces the conflict. So there needs to be some kind of a struggle, some kind of a conflict. It may not be physical, it may be mental, it may be emotional, but we need to know what the conflict is that must be resolved in some way. In the exposition, we also learn the characters, and this is where our setting is established. So many times when you're reading a play, it will actually tell you where the characters physically are. It It may be a geographical location, or it'll tell you that they're at a farmhouse or in the kitchen, but our setting is established right away in the exposition. We then move into rising action, and in rising action, those are the events that are taking place before the climax. So basically in rising action, the character or a protagonist is attempting to solve the conflict or the problem, or trying to establish what the conflict or problem is, but at this point has not been successful. And then we come to the climax. Again, this is the turning point, the point of no return basically. This is the point of greatest suspense or action, and nothing can be the same after this point. From there, we move into the falling action, and that is the action and events that occur after the climax and start kind of bringing that energy level down and into resolution or denouement, where the play at this time ends and the conflict or problem is resolved in some way. Again, it's really important to keep in mind that our resolution or denouement may not always be a happy ending. In fact, in many cases, it's not a happy ending at all. However, it is a resolution to the conflict that was presented in the play. And that wraps up our discussion of drama. Enjoy!